the status?
Yeah,
Press status and then roll it one.
All right, here we go. Okay.
That's the record button.
I'm new, my first.
It's helpful to know these things.
Right?
There's a red light. I can see that.
All right,
We got to be doing something right.
Flashing?
I'm kidding. Friends.
Very sweet.
We're good? All right.
Yeah.
First of all, talk about just the fact that you guys are sitting here together, the two of you. Just, did you ever dream at this point in your career the two of you would be talking about a new record going into 2011?
We definitely, at certain points, dreamt for exactly the opposite. We had, kind of come to the end of our tether in like 1998 and went our separate ways. We kind of done everything we felt we could do and then some, and just, it's time we'd done the band every day for 10 years at that point, and just felt like time for a change. So, no, I didn't see this one coming, actually.
Yeah, it's true, for sure. But I guess it does say a lot that we actually are still here doing stuff together. That must be worth something.
Mm-hmm. And not only doing stuff together, but doing, by all accounts, the best work of your guys' career. What does that feel like, knowing that you still have that creative inspiration when it comes?
Well, I think it's a byproduct of the fact that we've never really, we've had like success in certain areas, but not so much that we've ever, felt truly like, okay, we've done it, or we're satisfied, or it's certainly not made us lazy. We're motivated to do better and better every day, because what else can we do, really? We got to keep striving and go for the best always.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And for this one, talk about how this one came together. For people that haven't been following every step of what you guys have been up to, I know you guys have been making great music pretty much nonstop for all these years, but new Posies record is a big deal for people that love the Posies. How'd this one kind of germinate?
Well, it's just kind of been a while since we made our last record. It's been since 2005. And, long story short, it was just, guys have been in a band together forever. Guys made a record about 5 years ago. Guys then went off and did various other projects for a while and tried some other things and solo things, other bands. And then these guys finally kind of gave each other a phone call and realized it had been like 5 years since their last record, and decided it was time to make one. And we thought about how could we do it that would be fun this time around, something different. And so we decided to make it in a place called Spain, which was kind of very exciting and a different experience for us too, going to another place, sequestering ourselves, etc., etc. And it came about very naturally and very fast.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say also that the technology has changed over the last in the last 10 years. We've made 2 records. Technology's changed a lot, and a lot of this record, once we got the stuff done in Spain, we took it home and worked on it. Something we had never been able to do before in the way that we do it now. The computerized way. Our first album is actually a home studio recording, but on tape.
Mm-hmm.
But we hacked away at those tracks for hours and hours and hours. We had this great, fruitful, very natural, everybody playing together in the studio session in Spain in this wonderful environment, and then went away to our editing suites, and just chipped away at it and turned it into a record.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was actually very intense work, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd made a deadline. We'd booked our European tour. We sort of had to get the record out, and of course we thought, oh, it'll be no problem. And then, of course, up until we were like mastering the album, we're like calling the mastering guy, like, got a different mix, put this track in, put this overdub in the mastering software. It was like totally nuts, But that's kind of cool.
We'd still be working on it if someone didn't tell us to stop, probably too. So.
But that said, when do you guys know that this is coming together right? And is it after the songs are written? Is it happen to the process? All right, this is special. These songs are going the way they want. This is going to be a great record. There must be a moment where it all kind of comes together.
I think in the rehearsal, we got together and rehearsed in Seattle, and we'd heard the demos that John and I had made, and John introduced a couple of new songs too, especially some of the more kind of out there material. And it kind of, when we were presented with this one song, Accidental Architecture, we knew that we'd taken a left turn in a great way, and gone into territory we'd never done before. And that was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. This is not just your run-of-the-mill, 4 chords, kind of song. And from that point on, I think we were just, really charged up, and we knew we had something unusual.
Mm-hmm. And therein lies the excitement, right? When you guys are knowing you're doing something different, and this isn't going to sound like a previous Posies record, and hopefully get new fans, and the old fans will have something new to kind of...
Well, yeah, I mean, after all this time, too, I mean, you know, you just have to find something that still excites you after everything we've done at this point. I mean, we're not doing this to get rich, that's for sure, you know, so there's got to be some reason.
Richer.
Yeah, there's got to be some reason, and I think a lot of it at this point is just comes down to keeping ourselves entertained, keeping each other entertained, surprising each other, you know, keeping it fun.
You have to, you know, people love new things. You know, people love new bands and new artists, and there's always a great crop of young new artists coming up. And to get people to revisit a band that's been around for 20 plus years that isn't like, you know, an iconic thing like the Rolling Stones or something like that. You know, we're known but not that known. You know, we gotta really dig deep to give people a reason to come back. You know, if we just kind of cruised on, you know, maybe our best known traits, you know, that you know, we've done that. We've done an album that many people say that the album Frosting on the Beater sort of encapsulates the one we did in 1993. It's kind of our most popular one. It sort of encapsulates what we do very well in one way. So we're not going to re-encapsulate what we do. We're going to break the capsule and get out there and do a little spacewalking.
Yeah, it's tough though too, because you're competing with, in terms of like your old fans, sometimes you're competing with, you know, their memories basically. Like, you know, like people who heard like Frosty on the Beater, perhaps like, you know, just all the special things that maybe happened to them when they were young when they heard it, and you know, now sometimes it's kind of hard for them, I think, to sometimes want to give like something new a chance, you know. So we better be offering up something that's like, you know, above average, to at least try to sway them to give it a shot, to give it a listen. You know?
Talk about the feeling like when you're out at the show tonight and you're playing new songs off a new record, and you see kids out there that probably haven't seen you guys before. What's that feeling like, knowing that and seeing them just kind of going with it and feeling what the Posies are all about? It must be a good feeling.
It's so awesome. Actually, I was thinking when we played in Chapel Hill a couple weeks ago, you know, it was an all-ages show, and there was like, God, this one kid who was down in front, he had to be like 14, and he was just going nuts, man. And, you know, of course, it's hard to tell sometimes, you know, as much as we're immersed in music all the time and we know what's going on, it's hard to have the perspective about yourself to know if, like, are we keeping ourselves fresh? You know, are we going to make sense to, you know, a younger generation that doesn't have the context of having grown up with us? And it seems to be working, you know, which is cool.
But you guys don't let yourself think that when you're in the studio or writing songs. You're thinking about who's going to be listening to this, or does that enter into your consciousness at all?
Oh, you can go totally insane if you start thinking like that. You know, you don't want to second guess yourself, that's for sure. You gotta trust yourself and hope that, yeah, we've been listening and been observing, and we've been out there in the world so that we know, you know, kind of what's going on, but then put that aside and do what comes naturally.
Yeah, I could never consider that. You know, I think it's a fool's game at a certain point. You just got to do what makes you happy ultimately. I mean, if we like it, that's the ultimate barometer, I think, for us, you know?
And people have been saying such great things about this record. What does that feel like at this point in your career, to have people are responding the way they should be when they hear good music? But it must feel great.
Well, it's highly gratifying,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, especially after, like you said, I mean, we've been around a while, you know, so to be making something that's getting this good of a response, and also something that we feel this good about after the amount of time we spent, you know, with each other, I think that it bodes well. It also maybe perhaps suggests there's, you know, more of a future beyond this record as well, you know, and a good one at that.
Do you guys kind of see this then as a new beginning? Is this kind of like a cool, fresh start in less than another 5 years before another?
It's definitely a kind of fuel injection moment. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of definitely, you know, we're always inspired and we love making music, but it's something more when you have a little feedback, you know, and people give you some positive vibes about what you're doing. It's certainly nice to know people are listening. You know, that is, you know, I can even say that we need that, you know. You know, I would make music in my bedroom by myself, but it's, you know, it's nice to get out there and interact and know people are actually giving a hoot about what you're doing. It certainly gives you more inspiration.
Indeed.
Explain the globetrotting thing, because on paper it seems hard. Maybe in some ways it's even easier. I know you guys live in different places, and you're talking about Spain, and I guess you live in France, but I know you spend a lot of time in Norway. How does that all work in terms of when it comes together, when you're flying, when you're doing this? Is it not as crazy as it seems on the outside?
Well, there's some TSA employees that I'm on a first name basis with, but you know, it works. In fact, we know all the technology things of why it could work, you know, with internet stuff and file sharing and how we can move stuff around from studio to studio. But I'll tell you, I think what it's given us is like when we take time apart and go do other things and you know, give ourselves that much space, it brings so much into the music. You know, I think it's a really important part of our dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
We all have very different lifestyles and very different parts of the world and very different, you know, kind of situations, you know, and that makes the music very rich. And we each bring something cool to the picture that's very unique.
Yeah, and having so much going on too, like when we do get the time together, we use it to the nth degree, you know, there's never like a wasted moment. Like when we used to live in the same city, you know, down the block from each other, so to speak, I mean, there was a lot of squandered time, you know, and now we just get right down to it, and I think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Is there a general maturity then that comes with just having done this for a while and knowing how to do it and how it's done, where you put a lot of that aside, you guys know how to make a record and you know how to put on a tour? And
I'm always cautious of a word like maturity because I think it maybe sounds like potentially like old or boring, but I think actually in our case, you know, there has been some honest to goodness maturity that we've both and all of us have benefited from greatly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We just make records and work together so much better and much more efficiently than we ever did, especially back in the day.
We know how lucky we are too.
Yeah.
You know, we know how lucky this opportunity is to keep going. I mean, there are plenty of bands that we knew, that we played with that did well, you know, in 1988 when we started, that you know, they're not active.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of them have gone on to other things that are not in music, some by choice, some by not by choice. And, you know, I'm just happy to be here every day. I think it's a kind of a miracle, really.
Mm-hmm. And there's some pretty major side projects you guys have been involved in, from the Big Star thing to REM, and how has that kind of influenced what you guys have done with this band? Is it another side of your brain, or does it all kind of come together when you guys meet up again?
Well, music is music in one way, but yeah, there's personalities involved, and, you know, I think that we are good observers and good absorbers of things, so it definitely has an impact.
Like creativity breeds creativity, you know, I mean, and all of it is good practice too. I mean, everything you're doing every day, I mean, you know, it just makes you better at what you do, I guess. And, you know, we've been really fortunate to have these amazing things to do besides the Posies as well. I mean, the list, if you put it together, is pretty impressive. And I think from every one of them, we've got something out of it that's, you know, helped what we do together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a confidence builder too. I mean, when we did the Posies 24/7, you know, for the first 10 years, we never really knew like where we stood, or, you know, we had only each other to give feedback to and for. And when you play with, you know, other, you know, great musicians and they go, hey, that's cool, man, you know, like that has changed a lot about how confident we are in our own abilities, for sure.
Mm-hmm. How creative are you guys on a daily basis when you're not on the road or when you're home? Is it something you guys pick up something? Is it a keyboard or guitar every day? Is that part of your life, or jotting some lyrics down, or you put that aside when you need a break?
We work a lot. You know, we work on other people's records constantly. And actually that is really, because, you know, you're always jerry-rigging situations and trying to solve musical problems and technical problems, and I think that, you know, has really boosted our chops, as they say.
Yeah, really, I mean, the mind never takes a break on writing, or I mean, I'm always thinking about something or what's going to happen next, and even just last night, like, you know, trying to get to sleep, I mean, the brain just turns back to some fragment of some idea you've been working on. It's just inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of par for the course at this point. Blessing or a curse, I'll take it either way.
What are you guys proudest of with this record, what you've achieved?
Wow, I think just the record itself. I mean, it's just like, it's as eclectic as anything we've ever done, yet it feels like it's almost the most cohesive thing we've ever done at the same time. And I think that's a pretty amazing balancing act there. And I think we pulled it off.
I think it's pretty adventurous, and it's completely uncontrived. You know, it's totally us, but we've, you know, busted open, you know, the limits on what us could be defined as, you know, musically. and you know, I think this is the record I'd want us to be remembered by, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Till the next one.
Till the next one. How does that translate to the road, these new songs? How much fun is it to get out there and play the new songs? And how different do they sound than what's on the record, since it is such an adventurous record with so much going on? It must be a little more stripped down on stage.
Well, our shows are always a little fuzzier and wilder, you know, that's for sure. And that's definitely true with all of these songs. Even, you know, I mean, there's still an edge even in some of the mellower ones, the way we play them live, you know, and that's just inevitable, you know. Adrenaline is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that's different for sure is we actually had to do a thing called rehearse these songs for this tour, because some of them were so complicated and had to figure out how to make them work with just a 4-piece, but haven't had any complaints, you know. I think people think we really pulled it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
People talk often with you guys, like you, over years, it can go either way. There could be what people call a shorthand, and it could be easier, or you guys become so much more technically advanced that you're more perfectionist in certain ways, and things get more difficult when you're in the studio or on stage. If you can kind of just let me talk about that and where you guys are with that kind of relationship.
Well, we keep it low tech on tour, that's for sure. We do very little like looping stuff, because we want the music to be free as possible, and so we keep that to a minimum. We're a very easy setup in many ways,
But it's
we get
inevitable.
a lot of sounds out of it though.
But it's inevitable that in the studio, we're the kind of people that'll fiddle with it ad infinitum. I mean, we can't help it. It's just, you hear the layer out upon layer, and you just want to explore and give it a shot and try new sounds. And that's kind of what the studio is there for anyways, you know. And then live, when you come hear us do it, and it's a little more stripped down, I think you get more of maybe a little more of a visceral kind of attack that you don't quite get on the records yet, I'd have to say. It's not a bad thing, it's just different.
Doing the production and engineering we do for different records too. I mean, like, we've learned so many ways to push, you know, a computer into complete, you know, meltdown. And you know, of course, when we made this record, we went as far as we could go. I mean, there's songs with like 175 tracks on them, at like with this high resolution audio files that we use that are, you know, they're a little bit bigger than MP3s, you know, and there's like 700 of them playing at once. So you can imagine what those computers are going through. And of course, we're going to do it to the maximum. I mean, like, if you can, you will.
That's called understatement, folks.
Yeah.
Having a record like this now, how does this kind of like make you guys rethink your whole place and kind of musical history? Let yourself do that and look at kind of the Posies discography. And having a great record now, does it kind of have you reevaluate the whole thing? Do you look at it in those terms? This is where we are now, and
I think we're always thinking about the next thing. You know,
Yeah, that's true.
That's what we have to do.
mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you know, if we started putting ourselves in history, then we'd kind of be history, I guess, at that point. So, not quite ready for that one yet.
It is interesting to note that we kind of got lumped in initially because we were from this place called Seattle. Everybody always brought up the word grunge, and how we never really fit in with the whole supposed Seattle scene and all those kind of things. That now, like with this record, it almost seems like we kind of fit in with maybe more of what's going on with what is kind of, I don't know, kind of more the musical climate these days, I guess, with indie rock and, you know, being melodic and harmonious is kind of an accepted thing now, where when we kind of started out, we were kind of going against the grain in our own little way without even really trying. We were just kind of doing our own thing, kind of all oblivious to the fact that we were different. But now we seem to kind of fit in better.
You know, the grunge movement.
After 20-something years.
The grunge movement was this like very primal thing, and we were like these two like kind of librarian dudes, you know, and out there in the wilderness of the Northwest. And it's amazing to say that, yeah, the librarian rock is kind of that's the way these days. You know, it get kind of caught up to us in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not be our doing, but we certainly have good company these days. You know, a band like Death Cab for Cutie is a classic example. You know, I mean, they were big Posies fans too.
Yeah, or harmonies. Like, I mean, the band like Fleet Foxes. You know, they're all about harmonies. You know, and it's cool. It's cool to be pretty and quiet, and it's cool to whisper about your angst now instead of like scream about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And the debt a lot of these bands owe to you guys must be nice to either just one, know it, or two, actually hear it from these bands that admired you guys for so long.
Yeah, and sometimes it has, incredible, there's connections to be made. There's the band Snow Patrol that are really popular, and, found out that they're huge Posies fans, and they had me play on their album and play live with them, and, that's a cool connection to make, and hopefully will help us, bring us some new fans and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think you guys are doing the right thing. So.
Cool, man.
Cheers, man.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Very cool. All right.
Should we rock a tune?
We will switch gears.
The curtains rise. Daylight. I'm ready to play right. Ready to play right. I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize. Every time you're around. Daylight. Every sight, every sound, every time you're around. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Fireworks reflecting on your icy flow, like a fever below, and I can't break free of the glow and the gleam. Touché, Isabella, you were always the queen of the dramatic scene. Now I wanna shout, I wanna scream. Daylight, I'm ready for daylight. I'm ready to praise your heaven skies till the curtains rise. Daylight, I'm ready to play right. I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize. Daylight, ready for daylight. I'm ready for daylight. Ready for daylight. I'm ready to praise your heaven skies when the curtains rise. Daylight, ready for daylight. I'm ready for daylight. Ready for daylight. I'm ready to trade my darkened eyes for the glitter prize. For the glitter prize. For the glitter prize. For the glitter prize.